Welcome back to Bay Area Housewife of True Crime, where I like to tell the stories of the real cucuys and lloronas. We are at part 2 of the Waco Massacre. As a reminder, topics may be triggering. Viewer and listener discretion is strongly advised. The people mentioned are innocent until proven guilty in court. Lois died in 1986, and in her will, she left the compound of Mount Carmel to her son George Roden. In 1987, after an argument between George Roden and David Koresh that ended up in a gunfight, David and 7 others were arrested for attempted murder after they broke into the Waco compound. A jury ultimately acquitted them all of the charges, which sounds about right, because had David and the 7 others been persons of any degree of color, things would have been a lot different. Or maybe it was the women by the dozen that showed up to court in support of David and the men dressed in long skirts and blouses to their necks with kids clinging onto them. In 1989, George Roden murdered Wayman Dale Adair with an axe blow to the skull after Adair stated his belief that he was the true Messiah. George Roden was not about to let a third person say that they were the chosen one. In his mind, he was the chosen one. And he even made his congregation end their prayers by saying, "In the name of George B. Roden, amen." George was deemed insane and was sent to a mental institution in Big Spring, Texas. When David Koresh took over the Mount Carmel compound that George Roden had left behind, he discovered also left behind was a meth lab. And I think this picture is funny because it's giving Peso Pluma. On May 15th of 1990, Vernon Howell legally changed his name at a Pomona, California Superior Court to David Koresh. David was in honor of King David in the Bible, and surprise, Koresh is also the biblical name of Cyrus the Great, a Persian king. In 1984, somehow 24-year-old Vernon convinced the parents of his first legal wife, Rachel Jones, to allow her to marry him when she was just 14 years old. They had 2 children together, Cyrus and Star. But how could they not allow him? They believed in Vernon Howell too. Mr. and Mrs. Jones were one of his many followers. For legal purposes, because the SDAs be loving to sue people, the Seventh-day Adventist Church strongly denies being connected in any way to Vernon Howell, aka David Koresh, or the Branch Davidians. The 77-acre Mount Carmel compound in Waco, led by David, had more than 80 followers from all around the world: Hawaii, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and of course the United States. Most of his followers were ex-SDAs. And although David Koresh was a high school dropout, most of his followers were educated people with college degrees: nurses, executives, computer programmers, theologians, former pastors, receptionists, legal professionals, and the likes. From the outside looking in, it seems unfathomable that people would fall for these lies. But people truly believed that the end of times were coming. Like I said, most of them were ex-SDAs who were taught the same. They would feel pride in knowing that they were the chosen ones who were in the know, and that the world as we knew it was going to come to an end, and they were the lucky ones to be saved by the sinful Messiah. This piece of shit even went as far, or I guess I can say as close, as proclaiming his greatest love of all was his first legal wife's little sister, Michelle. Can you imagine this 12-year-old girl who trusted her older sister's husband? When this real-life kukui was 12, he was out here memorizing the New Testament word by word. David had the complete audacity to joke about and brag about how when he got into his 12-year-old sister-in-law's bed, she naively thought that he had gotten in her bed because he was cold. She gave birth to a baby, a daughter, in 1989. She was 14. The women in the cult formed what they called the House of David to bear as many children as possible. David believed children, including babies, should be whipped forcefully. He called this Vernonite theology. This cult leader would pick and choose things that were not allowed. He controlled what his followers ate, drank, what they did with their finances, what they wore, who they were to marry. David was allowed to drink alcohol, but his followers were not. David made his congregation provide tithes, which is 10% of your earnings donated to his organized religion. At one point, he started telling his followers that the 10% of your earnings was not enough. You had to send him all of your money. His rules would often change to benefit his interest, in particular those he started not to like. One family that fell into that category were kicked out for eating French fries, and another for indulging in chocolate chip ice cream. In 1989, he told his followers that all of the biological female members of the group now belonged to him. The biologically assigned males were to stay celibate until God came to take them to heaven, where they were going to be with their true love in heaven. He once complained about getting into the purposely done predicament of getting all of his wives in the House of David pregnant, and how it was no fun. He felt, and I quote, feeling dead, feeling lonely, feeling like a dirty dog, and unquote. And when I read that, I was like, was that a song? Because it sounds like feeling dead, feeling lonely, feeling like a dirty dog. But yeah, crazy. Robin Bunds was one of his first followers, and he convinced her parents, Dawn and Janine Bunds, to buy a house in Pomona, California to serve as one of the cult's locations.